Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Capitalist Investor. As always, you got me, Diamond Hands D. We got Tony the Tiger and Cool Hands Luke. What's up, boys? How we doing?
It snowed for the first time.
It did.
It snowed.
It snowed.
Here in Cleveland. It's a sad day.
Yeah, everyone.
I don't remember snow this early during Halloween. It's been a long time. I remember when I was very, very young, there was some snow, and that's the last time I remember. But
time to whip out the snowblower.
Yep. All right. Well, hope everyone had a great Halloween. We'll kind of touch on that at the end, but we're going to do the same thing this week. 5 topics, 5 minutes. So run through them real quick. We're going to hit up millennials, basically a lot of them still taking money from their parents.
Let's talk crap about millennials.
Yep. That's always a fun subject. We'll talk a little Bitcoin. Nice. We'll talk a little Janet Yellen. This was actually a really interesting article. We'll talk a little Twitter valuation. And we'll do a little canceled for, Halloween. What's allowed, what's not.
You're canceling Halloween?
I'm not canceling Halloween.
God.
Canceling. May or may not be canceling.
When you think you know somebody.
Oh, dude, I trick or treated like 4 times. It's ridiculous.
4 times.
Don't get me started on that.
4 different days?
Yeah, I'm just gonna sound like the old man yelling at the cloud. But when I was a kid, we trick or treated once.
One day.
How much candy do you have?
Like I have like an insane amount.
I'm
of
sure
candy.
you're eating it all.
Like a regular, a bucket. I bet you I got 5 of those.
Wow.
You probably taught your kid into, hey, we should go 4 times. We should
I
stock
absolutely
up on some
did
candy.
not. No, I absolutely did
We
not.
brought in our candy that we didn't give out yesterday. But let's hit hit that at the end.
All right, 5 minutes.
Let's go.
All right, so basically 25% of millennials, this is according to a poll, taking at least something from their parents. And actually, I looked up another survey. It was upwards of 35% taking something, 25% basically getting their rent covered. So 1 in 4 millennials, who I looked that up as well, were born between 81 and 96. I kind of have a little issue with that range. But at the same time.
Because you were born in.
I was born in 80.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Borderline. All right.
Yep. So what do you guys think? Is this just the new trend that's going to be here forever?
Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah. I do think that.
Moving on.
But what I will say is I think this goes back to the whole thought process of independency. I think my generation, which I'm borderline millennial with Gen Z, but Gen Z millennials, I think, were taught from the beginning that they're owed something in life by their parents, that they are entitled to something. Mm-hmm. And this goes back to the whole government process where we're all relying on mommy and daddy, the government. The government's kind of taught us that way. Mommy and daddy, actual mom and daddy, are always there to help us. It seems like no matter what, they're digging into their retirement savings to help their kids out, right? And that's a concern for the long term of retirement as well. Are the Gen Xers and the next generation, boomers, I guess, are they going to be able to fully retire and live comfortably if they did not raise their children to be independent? That's my concern. However, I want to say I wish I would have taken I'm very thankful I grew up in a good family, middle class family that was able to help me out. If I never needed anything, when I went to go buy my house, I'd liquidate my Bitcoin, my crypto portfolio. That's what I used to buy my house. I wish I kind of would have leveraged, a couple $1,000s taken from my dad, because if I would have done that, the Dogecoin I would have owned would have went to about $1 million. I'm not kidding. I would have had about $2 million if I would not have liquidated my crypto portfolio to buy my house. So, that's a what if scenario. But that being said, you have to know how to be independent.
Mm-hmm. Dave Ramsey made this comment, and so I went and looked on his YouTube, and he basically said parents should have avoided interfering with their children, and the fact of they need to learn hard lessons, they need to make hard decisions on life, and if you can't afford something, you shouldn't go out and get it. If you do, rack up the debt and see what happens, right? And this kind of comes back to that the famous I don't know what you want to call it, but helicopter parents. Like,
Yeah.
I want to make sure my kids grow up good and stuff and have everything I never had. And I don't know, man. I just I'm trying to avoid that with my daughter. It's difficult. I want her to have fun and stuff, but she's watching cartoons right now, and every commercial for a toy, she's like, Dad, you buy that for me? Like every commercial. And I'm like, no, where's your money? And she go, I have no money. And I'm like, well, that's a problem. But I've always said this also, and I'm just going to hit what you just said, Luke. Paying for education, things like that. I've always tell people, I'm like, you can always finance education, but you cannot finance your retirement. Yeah. There's no government programs to fund retirement except Medicaid, and you literally have to be broke. So, Derek, anything?
Yeah, I will say how, you want your kids to be successful. And I obviously agree with everything you guys just said. At the same time, I think you can still, teach your kid values while, helping them along early. Luke's example is great. There's a difference between understanding how money works and not understanding how it works. I think you can still receive stuff, from your parents, whether it's a down payment or, help with college education, and still have good values. I think where I separate from is when, the kids these days, right? Just don't have any values when it comes to money. They just see stuff, people living, on Instagram, and they think that's how their life is supposed to be.
Well, you had to be given a goal.
Right.
For example, one thing my parents always did, which I'm going to do to my kids, is that they always gave me a goal of, if you reach this, we will reward you with it, whether it was small. Like, if you go pitch a great game in baseball, we're going to go take you out to a nice dinner, whatever it be. Like, it was just small rewarding things if I did certain things. I think most of the kids' generation, they were not given a goal. They were like, hey, no matter what, you'll be taken care of. I think that was the culprit of 2010 to 2022 being so good.
I don't see many kids cutting grass or cleaning the house.
Cutting grass at 6 years old.
Dude, I was cutting grass. I was cleaning bathrooms. I was vacuuming. Like, I was taking care of the house. I mean, and I got paid an allowance for it, but now my house is clean because I know how to do that stuff. Like, there's some kids that don't even know how to wash their own clothes, and they're 30 years old.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I look at everything like an investment. When you're raising kids, it's an investment. Do things that are going to reward them from an investment standpoint down the road, monetarily as well as value-wise. Yep.
All right, moving on.
All right. So Bernstein said on Tuesday it expects the price of Bitcoin to rise to $150,000 by mid-2025.
Okay, so in a year and a half. Not even a year and a half. Is it a year and a half? Maybe just over a year and a half.
Yep.
5x.
Yeah. I think, so I'll start the timer. I think this
go.
is very possible if something big were to break. We always talk about some bad things could happen, given where rates are at, given the economy downturn, where the recession happens. This is the time for Bitcoin to do what it's supposed to do, like revamp the whole monetary system, geopolitical events. China. We talked about China selling U.S. treasuries and not using U.S. currency anymore. I mean, this is the whole economic warfare that Bitcoin was made to decentralize the governments, right? So if something bad were to happen, this is very possible.
What's the market cap on
right
crypto?
now? Like 400. Well, Bitcoin's like 400 billion. I think all crypto's like 600, 700 billion.
That's it?
Yeah.
Huh.
So 5x on Bitcoin would put it like a $2 trillion market cap. Nothing crazy, right? Gold's, I think, 20 trillion. I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's a 20 trillion market cap. So, like, yeah, I mean, this is the time for Bitcoin to do what it's supposed to do. But the key there is if everything's fine and dandy, we don't enter a recession.
But, I mean, if you do something at like 2 trillion, like, that's the market cap of Apple.
Yeah.
And Apple is 7% of the stock market. So you're talking, that's a big, huge jump. That rivals some of the biggest companies in the world, and we're talking about just an asset class.
I'd say Bitcoin's one of the biggest technologies in the world.
So I reading into this, I'm like, how in the heck can it 5x? Like, what? I mean, that just doesn't. That seems like astronomical numbers to me. And so like the article brought up like, okay, well, if this ETF stuff takes off with like BlackRock and all them, and it would eat up around 10% of the supply. So I'm like, okay, now we have a supply demand issue to drive the right. But my mind actually went to mining. Like, remember how like everyone's mining crypto and Bitcoin and stuff like that. Funny, it popped in my head, and as I keep on reading the article, they're like, oh, and by the way, the miners are probably going to get washed out because there's again, this is the black box of crypto. In April of 2024, there's some type of algorithm or code that is going to basically, it's going to take twice as hard to mine.
The halving.
They're having the halving event. It's going to take twice as long to mine this stuff. So twice the amount of energy and the cost. So that'll dry up, create a supply demand issue as well. So I don't know if all of those things coming together is going to make something go up 5x, but I mean, there could be something like you alluded to, some type of black swan event. Whether it's
the only way.
The crashing of a major currency, whether it's China's, Japan's, ours, who knows?
Yeah, those all seem like pretty unlikely scenarios, but since we're behind already, at the end of next year, so basically same time frame. Where do you guys see Bitcoin landing? What do you think the value will be? About a year
Just
from now.
because I'm a little more bearish, I think, than some. I think that we could see upwards, retesting highs like 60,000.
It's possible. It's been down for a long time, and I know there's a lot of people involved. It'll be interesting when the ETFs take off, like what's really going to happen with the price of Bitcoin. It pops on news, but it could be a sell the news event also. Yeah,
I have a real hard time figuring out how it gets above the all-time highs, before 2025. Yeah, best case scenario. And we've also been talking about this ETF for 3 years at least, and I think it's nowhere along, right? It just appeared in some note somewhere, and that's where it got the most recent bump up to 35,000. So
I mean, I think if it got to all-time highs again, you're going to have the people that will sell because they didn't sell the last time.
Well, it's called when you talk technical analysis, it's called resistance.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool.
All right.
Go ahead, Derek. Tee up the next one.
All right. Well, like I said, this is a pretty interesting article. But billionaire investor Stanley Druckenmiller accuses Janet Yellen of making the biggest blunder in Treasury history. So this is a Yahoo Finance article.
When you're a billionaire, you can just say what you want.
Yes. People just put you on TV and you can say whatever you want.
And he's worth $6 billion too.
Yeah.
That's not chump change.
Yeah, so not bad.
Just a little bit of money.
So, basically, the article went in to say, hey, when we lowered interest rates to 0%, the government should have been issuing as many long-term, bonds as possible to get as much money in to lock those interest rates in at a lower rate. Basically, you can kind of think of it like the opposite of refinancing your house, back in 2020, 2021, where a lot of people did that, locking in their rate for a long period of time. So, what do you guys think? It seems that no matter the government agency, they never really seem to think things out long term and make what, common everyday folk seem to make these decisions, like refinancing your mortgage when rates are low. So what do you guys think? Do you think
why aren't these guys, like someone like Yellen, Powell, I mean, who's their sounding board? Like, don't they, like, if it were me, I would be pulling in some of the smartest and most intelligent and most successful money managers in the world. I would get Druckenmiller in the room. I'd get Jamie Dimon in the room. I would get all of these, big swinging, whats from Wall Street, and find out what they feel would make the most sense, because they're the biggest, brightest. That would make sense to me. And It sounds like they don't. Like, hey, we're just gonna watch like unemployment rate. I mean, we're gonna watch the data. Okay, cool, man. So
I think it's just the system itself is flawed in a lot of ways. The fact that we have a Federal Reserve, I've talked about this before, the fact we have a Federal Reserve system with the way the economy is, with borrowing, credit, availability of credit, the game's changed a lot over the years. I just think it's a faulty system that no longer works the same as it used to back during the 1912 or 1910s when the Federal Reserve was created in the first place. So I that's my initial quick thought. My overall, though, thing is, when it comes to them not refinancing rates, what if their game plan's going exactly as it was supposed to? What if the reason why they've raised rates so quickly, the biggest ever in history, was to tame inflation as quickly as possible, break something, and then before they need to refinance 50% of their debt here in about a year and a half, the rates go back down to maybe 1.5%. So they tame inflation, they do that job, they break something, they lower rates back down, all the debt gets refinanced. Maybe war happens. Maybe this was World War III, where this gives an excuse to lower rates back down, refinance debt cheap. I don't know. There's things we got to think about. It's not anytime soon. I don't want to get too conspiracy. I think it's possible we'll see negative interest rates in our lifetime.
Really?
Because this debt brigade cannot go on forever. So the only way we get out of this, in my opinion, is that we inflate our debt to the point of no return. So we basically inflate our way out of debt. So negative interest rates would do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole different story, guys.
What European country had the negative interest rates?
I think Germany did.
Yeah,
was it Germany?
There was a few.
So I mean, they're out of that now.
The only long-term solution, since we know the government will not pull back spending, is to inflate our way out of debt.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, negative interest rates. That means you put $100 in the bank, and they charge you a fee to hold your money. That's basically what that means,
exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Also interesting.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Also interesting to note, everyone who was against the Federal Reserve died on the Titanic. Did you guys know this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And J.P. Morgan. It's not it actually happened. And J.P. Morgan was, obviously in favor of the Federal Reserve, was scheduled to go on the Titanic and, deboarded. Deboated? I don't know how you say that, but it got off the boat right before.
Because you were there, right?
It's on the internet, Luke. It has to be true.
You know what? Next show we're doing
conspiracy theories?
Come with your best conspiracy.
It's been the best couple of years for conspiracies, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. All right. So X, formerly Twitter, valued at $19 billion in new employee stock plan.
Oh, that's nice. He's rolling out an ESOP for these guys. Good for that. Yes, why don't you tell him about the wrinkle in that one?
Well, he bought it for $44 billion about a year ago.
Just a capital loss. It's a capital loss.
Hey,
tax write-off.
Hey, what's $20 billion amongst friends?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they said within the last year, this is where my mind went. They have lost 50% drop in advertising in the last year. So that made me think, I'm like, okay, when I hop on Twitter or X, man, it is the algos are insane because it knows what you want to watch. So everything or want to see and everything's just disturbing on mine. It's just not. I can only take so much of it. It's just weird politics stuff, and most of it seems to be more right of center kind of stuff. But then
algorithm knows.
But then I also see some of the left. So it's mine's locked up with all this political stuff. So that then made me kind of go over and say, if they lost 50% of their revenue, is it just because Twitter is more of a political tool? It's a political forum, because if you lost 50%, that's probably the other 50%, Democrats, Republicans. The Democrats don't jump on Twitter. And the reason I know this is because Joe Biden, who got 81% of the population votes, only gets 5,000 likes for a tweet, where Elon Musk will put an anime up there and get 1 million likes. Or
81 million votes, right?
80. That's what. What did I say? Billion votes?
81%.
81 million votes. That means there's 81 million people out there that like that dude. Mm-hmm. And he only gets 5,000 likes. I've seen the most, maybe 20,000. Like, so something's. I think it's more of a political thing, and I think it's a political forum for more, conservative, right of center type of people. That's my theory.
I mean, I think Elon Musk, this goes back when we first were talking about X and Twitter and Elon acquiring it. Is Elon Musk doing this for financial gain, or is he doing this to actually try to benefit the world? And I truly think that this shows the fact that he's willing to take a $20 billion haircut and give incentives to his employees. He doesn't necessarily care about making money on this. He doesn't want to make money on this. He wants to get more factual, not completely factual, more factual information. And basically the way he's monetizing, I don't know if you guys know this, the way he's giving creators a way to monetize their own impressions and their own brand themselves on Twitter, basically he's outsourcing journalism to you as an individual rather than the mainstream media. So he's taking power away from mainstream media and giving it to the individual. I mean, you're already seeing like self-reporting journalists go out there and create content themselves to make money off of this on Twitter. Mm-hmm. It gives an incentive, again, capitalism, right? It gives an incentive for you to actually get different information, different opinions, things like that.
To kind of stay on the Elon thing, did you guys see the clip with him and the Joe Rogan like interview?
I haven't seen him yet. I plan on watching it though.
Man, like there's a book out there called The Great Reset. Yeah. Talking about how like all this crazy stuff is happening based on a design of few people in the world, trying to.
You're going straight Illuminati at the end
Illuminati,
of the show.
The conspiracy theory stuff. But like, if you listen to Elon, like, man, like he's talking about like George Soros and stuff. Oh man, he really goes out
when
there.
You're the richest man in the world,
Man, dude, it sounds like the stuff that he says. It's like, man, how does he not get assassinated or something? like he's gonna say something about somebody who has a lot of money and he's just gonna disappear one day. Hope that's not true, but I mean, but it just makes you think like, what a he really can't. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Maybe we'll talk about it in another episode. But
is it like a 3.5 hour?
It's a 2-hour thing.
I just saw them eating like pizza or something like that.
It was a 2-hour podcast, but like the one clip was him talking about how the funding for political influence, the best money spent is on the local level, not the presidential level, because you can have lower amount of dollars goes a lot further to get a mayor.
Well, it's like mathematically your vote matters more locally too. You can actually influence election locally.
Right.
Nationally, mathematically, your vote doesn't matter.
Right. I mean, because it's not really a local election is popularity, whereas like popularity vote will not win you the presidency. You need electoral votes, right? So I just thought it was very one of the statements he made is just like, like that's where the money of the people that want decisions being made is going more towards state, county, and local decision makers. So I don't know. I thought it was very, very interesting.
All right. Well, time's up on that one. So canceled this week. Age limit. So are we canceling teenage or older trick-or-treaters?
Not teenage. Older. Yeah.
So like over 18?
Like over like 16, 17, I'd say. But like, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with 12, 13, 14. That's the fun part. I mean, you start to really understand like the more superheroes, whatever it be, or you want to dress up as. I dressed up as Halo, I think, when I was like 12 or 13 because Halo was cool back then. It was popping. So like, I don't know. Like, I think that 16, 17 is probably the cutoff. You hear stories now about like these adults, like trick or treat, whether it's with their kids or by themselves, like they're expecting candy now too. It's weird.
The one house down the street had Jello shots.
It's
vodka Jello shots for the adults.
Yeah.
It's basically an excuse for adults to drink now and get drunk.
And a spiked cider somebody else had.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, The street was popping.
Did you have some, Tony?
No, I did have a Jell-O shot. Yes, I did. I would tell you, I would not. I'd be lying to you if I said no. But the thing is that so we do the whole candy bar thing. So it's like, hey, like we lay them all out too and say just one, and it's always those smart ass mid-teenagers that come in and saying like, oh, can I get two? Like, when can I get chips and candy? Like, or like, no, dude, what don't you understand about one? Pick one. Like
the full on,
like one chip and candy. I'm like, flip this table over.
Like a full on bars. I mean, that could add up, man. You dropped like $100 on candy last night.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm glad I live on a busy street. No one comes to me.
I have one of my friends comes over because they're like you. They don't get any action.
Yeah.
You know, no one shows up. So to jump on that, they come over and pass out.
Probably
candy
see
with
my
us.
high grass and think it's a haunted house.
All right.
What do you think, Dave?
You know, I don't think. I think it goes back to how you act. Like, I don't think there has to be an upper age limit if you're.
If they're bigger than me,
respectful.
I'm like 6 foot, 200 pounds, and if I look like they could beat me up and take all my candy, like they're too old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, why? At a certain age, it's like, why are you still doing this?
Well, why are kids still taking money from their parents?
Is this a cycle of life? Like, holidays now are irritating to me. Like like in your 20s, is it natural in your 20s and 30s? Is it weird? Like, a holiday's like just another day. I'm like, this is annoying just to even deal with. And then the older you get, you start appreciating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's why Thanksgiving's always my favorite holiday, because I don't have to give anybody anything. I don't have to get anything from anybody. I don't need to be disappointed because
I hate
there's turkey, food, football, and naps.
We should definitely talk.
As you get as an adult, you will appreciate Thanksgiving more and more and more because of what I just said.
Family. I like family gatherings, but I hate the Christmas, this whole thing coming up. We should talk about it in an episode. Give our thoughts on gift giving, because I hate the concept of gift giving. Because you only give a gift to expect something in return.
See,
it all offsets each other.
I just wanted to come to the table with, hey, what's your top 3 Christmas movies? And this dude wants to talk about canceling presents on Christmas.
Die Hard. It's my favorite Christmas movie.
Stop, man. Keep it for the show, man.
I do watch Die
This
Hard.
dude's trying to cancel Christmas. This dude's trying to cancel Christmas, man.
I'm the Grinch, man. I've been the Grinch all year.
That was some hardcore Grinch stuff right there. All right. Well, I think we're out of time now. So, but thanks everyone for listening this week. Had some good topics. If you guys have any topics, show ideas, hit us up at info@swpconnect.com, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bah humbug.
The opinions expressed in the podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any investment, legal, financial, or tax strategy. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. Please consult a qualified professional about your individual needs.